NFC Northcast. This is Joey, and I am joined, as I am every week, by Chad.
Great to be here, Joey, with you.
Yeah, I'm here.
You, you're not on a milk carton yet.
No,
We're just
I'm here for.
we're just gonna push you.
I'm here for now. Oh, great! NFL primetime opened up with Malcolm Butler cussing out John Harbaugh at midfield. Sweet.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's big news. That's big,
We'll talk about that.
big exciting news whenever Harbaugh gets uppity about stuff.
I mean, we'll talk about. We'll get into that. We'll save it. You're gonna get me fired up already. What you drinking tonight, buddy?
I'm not doing anything
Oh wow.
tonight. I have such an appropriate choice for you tonight. This is Crusher. It feels like a lot got crushed this weekend. Uh, And this beer is a double IPA from the Alchemist Brewery. I've mentioned it once or twice on the podcast before. They're most famous for a IPA called Heady Topper. Very popular beer in the craft beer community. But this is a classic double IPA that they used to make in their old brew pub back in the old days when we'd go frisbee golfing. Go get some really good sweet potato fries and great craft beer before they were the hot shit all over the nation. So, Crusher. This one goes out to my Cincinnati and Ravens fans, friends out in the world there. And you know what? Jaguars fans too. Mm-mm-mm. How about you, Joey? What are you drinking?
I am drinking to forget tonight. We got a little margarita going on, so some tequila. Pretend I'm on a fucking beach somewhere, because that's where the Ravens will be in January.
Oh, I love that about you, Joey. You're a realist. Maybe even worse than a realist. You're a pessimist. You really ride the highs and lows of the emotional fan
Yes,
experience.
I am
And
very
that's
emotional. There's just not a whole lot to be excited about right now in Charm City. Speaking of not being excited, Cincinnati Bengals fans have something to not be excited about. Joe Burrow got injured in the game against the Potatoes on Sunday. Basically, everybody knew right away that it was a bad knee injury. Came out that it was an ACL, an MCL, and other structural damage. Haven't heard a timeline or anything like that. I'm sure he'll have surgery soon if he hasn't already. And then we'll see what his timetable looks like for coming back soon. Do you want to recap what was happening in the game before that?
sure. Basically, the recap would go a little bit like this. Joe Burrow was playing, I would say, a classic Joe Burrow game, mostly being really impressive. A lot of quick throws, a lot of good quick reads, but probably two of his nicer deep balls that I think he's thrown this year. Neither of them were completed, both with T. Higgins as the target, a sign of things to come. And at the time of the injury, early in the third quarter, they were up 9-7 on a nice AJ Green touchdown and a field goal, 53-yarder, and they proceeded to lose 20-9 when their team morale completely emptied into the void. Despite what Zach Taylor said, it did. They were not able to do anything. The effort was there, but it was just a mess. So that's basically the long and short of it. There was a couple really nice things that happened in the game. I'll focus on the stuff that happened before Burrow got hurt. They gave up an early touchdown and then had just like a really great drive where early in the drive, Burrow hit AJ Green on the sideline. He barely got both his toes down. It was classic AJ Green, which, we're probably not going to see too many more of those. He's not having a superior year, but he's still got a little bit of that magic left. And then Joe Burrow did a little bit of read option, looking a little bit like Lamar. showed off some athleticism on a nice long run. Um, and then and then he did some rookie stuff down in the red zone on a 4th and 2. Burrow looked around, didn't see anything good, and tried to make his way to the end zone and stretched out, just exposing all of the vulnerable parts of his body to Chase Young at the goal line, who um, he really crushed him. He crushed him hard, and it led to one of the weirder fumbles that I've ever seen in my life, where they spent about 18 minutes trying to decide if it was a touchback or a safety or a like everybody recovered it and fumbled it
Yeah.
again. It was a big mess. But it really didn't matter. It ended up not being a score, but it was a really nice drive. Got some cool stuff going there. And I thought it exemplified a lot of the nice things that Joe Burrow has been doing this year. How about you? Anything you liked about this game before the
Uh,
end?
yeah, I mean, really just more of the same from the Bengals with Burrow slinging it around, and um, he's an equal opportunity passer. That's something, it's not like, I think the typical rookie quarterback thing to do is kind of like is lean very heavily on a guy. And Tyler Boyd had the standout game of the bunch, but like Green had his catches and Higgins had his catches, and so um, that's good to see. Um, they're not having Mixon. I mean, just like stinks for this offense, and it kind of compounds the problem already of what everybody's talking about now. With Burrow had like 30 pass attempts in the first half or something near there. Um, Without Mixon, like Giovanni Bernard is like a nice little role player, but he's certainly not Joe Mixon, and so they're fine to stand back there and sling the ball around, but especially now that Burrow's out, puts him in a bad spot. But I don't think I have a problem with their scheme. Um, I don't. I know that O line is a big weakness, and they basically have known since they drafted him that O line was going to be a weakness. I just don't know what else you do without just like conceding a whole season and wasting a year of his rookie contract.
Yeah, this is tough because I think if you're being totally honest, it's both things, right? Like you can't just blame the O line and the coaches for playing him behind a bad O line because he was good enough to play behind that O
Yeah,
line. Like they were scoring 30 points most games. He was a smart guy. He was making good reads. He was getting the ball out pretty fast. And he was making some classic rookie quarterback decisions where he held the ball a little bit too long. Um, so he took a lot of hits, both because of the line and because of his learning, like to have a new clock, a new NFL clock instead of
yeah,
a college clock. Um, the reason that I think it's also fair for people to be mad is that we all saw coming. Like we all knew. Like when in the history of these picks has everyone just been like, "Oh, I just hope he makes it through the year." Like
yeah,
we knew this was a problem, and not only do they have a bad offensive line, but they're juggling these guys. They didn't even have a steady offensive line. They're moving starters around. Their right tackle is wasn't even on a team 2 weeks ago, Quentin Spain, and he might be one of the better performers right now. Like, and on the play that he got hurt, Zach Taylor is like, oh, well, he didn't even have the ball in his hands anymore. Well, that's exactly it. Like, he made a quick read and he threw the ball. And in that time, the tackles got beat around the corner and the guard, Fred Johnson, got beat and there's nowhere to go. Everybody fell into him. If there's nowhere to go, then everybody falls at you. Like, you know? So I'm not like blaming the Bengals, but it does make me think like if you're building a team, is it better to like trade your first pick because you can get a ton of stuff out of it, draft your top couple O linemen, wait a year, and then draft a quarterback because you're still going to stink, like the Jets are about to do. They got Mekhi Becton. He seems like he's going to be really good. So they have the start of that O line before they draft the quarterback. So they, like, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, they thought they drafted their quarterback 3 years ago or however long with Darnold, and so like to say, I don't know, to say that they're doing it the right way, drafting an O line first, is like, well, they swung and maybe missed on a quarterback. There's varying opinions on Darnold and whether he's a bust or they wasted his whole contract not putting enough around him, or Gase failed him, or whatever it is. Like, now they're coming around to the back end of that cycle where, and it could benefit them in the long run, but I think without having the hindsight, like Becton is Becton is 2 years after Darnold, and so it's not like
the Jets are more of a accident. How about the Browns? They drafted Baker Mayfield. They had a really nice offensive line immediately, and then they ended up trading a couple of them, but he still came into a pretty strong offensive line, and moderate talent at the skill positions. And I don't know, it just feels like.
Yeah, I mean, Jonah Williams was an unknown. He's a first round left tackle. Like, there were hopes of him, being an anchor on that side, and I don't know. I just feel like Burrow is a can't miss prospect, and like you can't just like not draft him because you don't feel like you have. I think the better thing to do would be to draft him and then pick up some journeyman veteran to bridge. Cam Newton is making $1 million to play football this year. Like there are things out there. There's ways to do it, and the Bengals are one of these teams that they don't spend the money and they cut corners where they can, and so that contributes to all this also.
Yeah, it's just, and I think that's the thing. We're all trying to like look for rationale, because even though it was random and he very well could have made it through the whole season and he was doing great, it also, how random can it be when the whole world sees it come? You know what I mean? Like, maybe that incident is random, but like he was on pace to be hit the most times of any rookie quarterback in 20 years, tied with like Daniel Jones, I think is where he was at the time. Like, their offensive line was bad. It was like 28th in pass blocking. So, I mean, but they were exciting. They were actually exciting. And they didn't have anyone else. We're going to talk about it. They didn't have anyone else. Like you said, if you bring in someone like Cam Newton, then maybe you can bridge that. But no one's going to teach him. No one's going to teach Joe Burrow how to be better on that roster.
No, I don't think that's what it's about. But I will always err conservative on rookie quarterbacks. Like, I'm a big fan of City year. Like, if you get to play in garbage time of some games, or if you get to play the last couple weeks because things are whatever and you're out of the playoff hunt and it doesn't really matter, and you can get some like NFL real speed, not preseason experience, like, that's awesome. I don't know. That doesn't solve your O-line problems either, but I don't know. There's just so many case studies from like David Carr, or more recently Andrew Luck, and then like the best case scenario for bringing a quarterback into a situation like this is Deshaun Watson. And I think it's probably pretty similar. Deshaun Watson's always had good skill help, but his O-line's been atrocious. He spent a couple weeks last year riding a bus to games because he couldn't fly, because he had like a punctured lung or some crazy shit like that, and he still played. Like, he's set all kinds of like sack records, I'm pretty sure, for the first however many years of a career, and he's still great, but they haven't won anything, and I guess that's the real goal at the end of the day, is to fucking win. Um, and now they have a decent O line, but that's another story. Bill O'Brien fucked that whole roster up, but
Yeah. So to be specific about the Bengals, the other problem here is this. So like Joe Burrow was the beacon, right? Like everything else about the Bengals is a big fat question mark. And Joe Burrow was the one thing that even if he wasn't perfect for the games he played, like we all agreed, like he was having a great year and he was something to be excited about. And I think that this was already a written article and they were just waiting for the moment. But a Sports Illustrated reporter, Elise Jesse, uh, released a report today, just like the Bengals like toxic culture. And, they don't name players that like told them this stuff, but like she cites players that, she spoke to anonymously or whatever that talked about like Zach Taylor not being like approachable at all. And the examples beyond those sources of hers that are clear are Andy Dalton and Carlos Dunlap, who like reported like not being told about when they were going to not start until like the last second, and just like weird communication breakdowns that you wouldn't really expect. And then beyond that, like literally verbally abusive coaches, Lou Anarumo and Jim Turner, who are their D coordinator and offensive line coach. Like, not only are they doing a bad job, but like they're like berating players. They're like not consistently having accountability. So like they're playing favorites. It's just a huge mess, and players aren't speaking up because they're worried about losing playing time, which will hurt their paychecks. They can't get another contract or whatever. So I mean, this is like a mess, and like the players, I think like it showed they rallied around Joe. They voted him a captain. Like, I think this team is going to be basically unwatchable from here on out.
yeah, the rest of this game was unwatchable. Uh, Finley went like 3 for 10 to end the game,
He stunk.
and without Mixon, there's no real threat of a run game. Uh, yeah, not
Yeah,
good for the
I've
Bengals.
I've never seen a quarterback both panic to get the ball out and like just whip it wherever he could at a moment's notice and throw wildly inaccurate and short arm it and all that stuff to stop himself from getting sacked, and yet still get sacked so many times in like less than half the game. I think he got sacked like 4 times. It was truly terrible. Probably my last great memory of the Bengals this year will be Jesse Bates, who, look for him to keep on doing awesome stuff if you dare to watch any Bengals football for the rest of the year. He had a tip ball interception, and he was so excited that he ran in a full circle on the field trying to figure out what to do with it. I think it ended up being like a 4 yard return, but I just love it. It reminded me of Palomalu. Like you could almost see the frantic emotion of like this is so much fun. Like I could go anywhere. Um, so yeah, nail in the coffin on a team that was frankly going to probably play some fun games down the stretch.
Yeah,
Um, and when you're us and we're watching all of them, that's like something to look forward to because they're going to be entertaining. Now it's going to be less fun, but we're going to do it for you, listeners. We're going to do it for you. So 20-9 is the end of the Bengals season. Oh, I do have one other thing to kind of put the nail in the coffin. So Joe Burrow was on a 16-game pace for 4,300 yards passing, 20 TDs, and 8 interceptions, which is a nice little rookie year. Would have fallen short of Baker Mayfield's touchdown record more than likely, but could have broken the yardage record pretty easily.
yeah.
And I wanted to get this one out there because there's a chance we'll reapproach the young wide receivers we talked about at the beginning of the year. And I think T. Higgins is going to be pretty heavily sabotaged by this. So he's currently at 40 receptions for 630 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he didn't play in week 1, but if you just count it anyway, he was on pace for 69 receptions for 1,000
Nice.
yards and 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, he was having a really nice year. He was pretty much going to either lead the team in targets or be right behind Tyler Boyd every week from here on out, starter. So we'll see what happens with the other guys we talked about. But T. Higgins, really nice chemistry with Joe Burrow, and hopefully he can keep learning his craft for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Higgins is above guys in the league like Devontae Parker in yards. Like he's a second option, like him and Boyd both, but like he's a second option on a team, and like the Dolphins are a winning football team, and their leading receiver has less yards than 2 Bengals. Like, so yeah, it stinks that I was not watching the Bengals for obvious reasons. But I was like legitimately bummed for the Bengals and Burrow when that started getting around the group chat and Twitter and all that. So
Yeah. Well, should we briefly talk about some positive stuff before we then really ruin your mood at the end of this here?
sure,
Browns and Eagles?
yeah, Browns Eagles, real slugfest. The Browns have grown accustomed to these types of games. um, this is the third like real ugly game they've played in a row. Uh, but they just keep winning them. And
Bad weather again.
they are now rainy. It wasn't as cold, I don't think, but just rainy.
Mm-hmm.
At halftime, it was 7-0, and that 7 came on a pick six. Daryl, you did not miss the big Henry run. We will get to my agony as a Ravens fan soon enough. I'm sure to the pleasure of everybody.
Yeah, you're the only Ravens fan.
Everyone loves to root for the Ravens to lose. Carson Wentz just torpedoed the Eagles. Mina Kimes on NFL Live today called the Eagles offense a tornado of suck. And that's pretty apt, I think. That's basically what they were on Sunday. So the only scoring in the first half was a pick six thrown by Carson Wentz. Sion Takitaki took it to the hizzy.
Great TV name. One of our favorite names to hear on TV.
Yeah. And then the Eagles did manage a touchdown to make it 7-7. And then the Browns answered with a field goal. It was 10-7. And Carson Wentz took a classic Carson Wentz duck into a sack, not really avoiding any pressure or getting rid of the ball, and took a safety. And it's pretty much all downhill from there.
For the record, though, that was Olivier Vernon's third sack, and I think the bull rush he put on Jason Peters might have knocked him out of the potential Hall of Fame. It was really, really embarrassing.
And then basically after that, like, Chubb and Hunt took over. They were both fucking jumping all over everybody, and the Browns kind of cruised to victory after that.
Everybody's so excited about Kareem Hunt's touchdown that they're just willing to ignore the fact that for the game he had like 6 carries for nothing. 1 yard. Yeah. Because he lost like 13 yards on one play. And it was a great play, set up by, of course, a 50-yard Nick Chubb run. Every game, you're going to see Nick Chubb do 2 different runs that are both amazing. And in this game, it happened on 2 consecutive drives. He had like a 20-yard run where he ran up the middle and used the eyes on each side of his head to see that there were like 4 defenders coming from each direction. And he did this like triple sidestep maneuver, almost like Frogger. It didn't even look like he was going that fast. It was just like little steps around all the traffic. Doot, 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 sideways, sideways, backwards, forwards. And then he just ran. And everyone was gone. And you're like, dude, he's so shifty. But he doesn't look that shifty because he's so big. And then on the next drive, he's like, yeah, I'm big. And then once he gets to the second level, he just runs people over if he doesn't feel like doing the side steps because maybe he's tired or maybe his shoes are on too tight. I don't know. He just decides how he wants to embarrass you. And that run was 50 yards. And then Kareem Hunt jumped over people and scored a touchdown. So, yeah, they got good running backs. I don't know if we've told you that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. The Eagles are kind of spinning out of control, especially on offense now. I not only did this myself, but I recommended it to somebody else. I started Travis Fulgham in my flex over J.K. Dobbins this week. And that was real dumb. Didn't know that Denzel Ward was just going to follow Travis Fulgham around all game, and he shut him the fuck down.
You know, he really didn't follow him around, but he just didn't get targets when he wasn't
Even
on it,
better.
which is a real credit to Wentz's intelligence on that. Yeah, I'm pretty certain, and we normally podcast after this stuff is released, but a Browns defender will win AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Now, the big media types are going to tell you it's Olivier Vernon because he had 3 sacks. One of them was a safety. We've been telling you all season that Myles Garrett's the only person that rushes a passer on that team. And we're right. I don't know what the Eagles were doing. Some of those sacks, dude, some of those sacks came on 3-man rushes. Like, I can't even describe to you how pathetic that is. Like, the Browns' other rushers aren't good. Like, Olivier Vernon, he's not that good.
Adrian
He was
Claiborne.
good today.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got a sack too. But Olivier Vernon is not the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. I'm going to tell you who is. It's Denzel Ward. And we've been telling you all year that since the Cleveland Browns defense is 2 good players and then 9 bodies. And Denzel Ward was the one that rushed Carson Wentz on the pick 6 and hit him as he threw the ball and created that interception. And then he ended the game on a red zone interception, which, for the record, final score 22-17, important play. So Denzel Ward should be your AFC Defensive Player of the Week. You heard it here first. Don't let people fool you into Olivier Vernon.
Don't let the fake news media tell you.
They'll try. They'll try. There's a lot going around. I'm telling you. I'm on Facebook. I know which Disney princess I am. So that was important. The other thing that was pretty cool was we're starting to see a little bit of Stefanski stuff happening. They're not just giving it to Chubb and having him break tackles of everybody. A couple big plays today on play action rollouts for Baker. And everybody's always saying, oh, Baker loves to roll to the right. It's all he can do. It's all he wants to do. Well, they had him do these big looping rollouts to the left on 2 different plays that both ended in big completions. So they're doing some good stuff to move Baker around, to be a little bit unpredictable. And that's the way you want to do it when you're only throwing 20 or so passes a game. You want to create a couple mismatches where you don't have to make a crazy read and you have an opportunity for a big play. Nailed it. So, good job, Stefanski. Good job, Baker. Good job, Denzel Ward. And, hey, Myles Garrett, potential defensive player of the year. Great game. I'm sure that he was like doing some stuff with the tablets, helping people out.
That's
too.
right.
So we'll try and
We'll
give him some credit. Coach on, yeah, exactly. One more piece of advice to one of our almost assured listeners. Hey, Jedrick Wills, could you strap your helmet on, please? Come on. He got his helmet knocked off twice. Just running around trying to block people, no helmet on.
He's fishing for those hands to the face calls.
He is. And he had a pretty nice game, but he did give up a sack to whichever sweat plays on the Eagles, Josh
Josh.
Montez.
Montez
Josh.
plays for the Redskins.
Yeah, it's not fair that we had to talk about both those teams in the same week. You can't expect me to keep that separate.
Yeah, that's heinous.
So gave up. It is. It is. I've got other stuff to think about. So yeah, he gave up one sack today, but overall, he's still doing his thing. 22 Browns, 17 Eagles. Now second place in the AFC North.
Gross. Fuck. I forget what I was gonna say now. Interesting thing about the Browns doing their winning this year and what Stefanski has done for / with Baker. Baker Mayfield is one of like 3 quarterbacks that have started at least 8 games that still have less passing yards than Dak Prescott, who played 5.
Dude.
But he's taking care. He's taking care of the ball. He's not out here giving it away like old Carson Wentz on the other sideline, and it's a winning formula for them.
I love that stat, Joey. It almost makes me join Twitter because I know that that's where it came from. That is a classic Twitter stat, and I love it.
I think it was actually Instagram. It was a slide to see the quarterbacks that.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That's great. I love that. All right, should we move on to the Steelers? Pretty ho-hum here.
Yeah, just another week, another Steelers victory over another juggernaut football team, another worthy adversary.
My favorite Steelers resource, Steelers Depot, likes to refer to the Steelers as 10-0 in trap games this year. So, still undefeated. Really nice game. It played out the way that we were hoping, right? So I think if you watched the game, you saw that Luton actually looked pretty good early on, before he knew what was happening. Basically, he didn't like. He was ignorant.
He was too dumb to know. Yeah,
he was facing. Yeah. He stood in there, made some nice reads. They scored a field goal on their first drive. He was decisive. I think the first drive was when the Steelers had their classic zone miss coverage, and he did the read. And Robinson was effective. He was running well. He was running well inside, even with Alu back. I'm going to change my pronunciation of that a little bit every time just to make sure I get it right once this year.
I like Alu.
I think I do too, and I think that might be right. So he was pretty good, but fortunately what the Steelers did was they just started scoring points a little at a time until they were up by so many that Robinson was no longer a part of the game plan. And that's how when you have a really good defense, you make that defense look even better statistically, right? You get to a point where you're leading and teams have to get one-dimensional, and then Luton absolutely fell apart once they were down by 2 scores. I would say this was a big Deontay game. Deontay Johnson normally has a drop or 2, but he was very sure-handed this game, and that's great because he was getting like 1 million targets. He was making all sorts of great catches. And other than that, this was all about the defense. We had Minka coming down with 2 picks, one in the red zone when the game was only 10-3 and still in question. That was a big deal because he returned it like 50 yards, and it basically changed the whole dynamic of the game. And also 2 by our man that we never talk about, Terrell Edmunds. This was going to be one of the rare Steelers first-round picks that you could maybe call a bust. And maybe we still will. But he's playing pretty well. He misses about 6% of his tackles, which is really, really good. But he never catches the ball until Sunday. 2. 1 was a classic. I like to call this the classic Ed Reed interception. He's just back there playing center field, catching the ball. Ed Reed got 1 million of these. And he gets a lot of credit for being a genius. Whatever. They're not that great. But you have to be in the right spot. You do. You have to be in the right spot, and he was. And so that was big. big time interception. But the second one, and Ed Reed did some of these too, so I'm not trying to just crap on your good player. He was playing deep safety and he cut off a route, ran forward, reading the quarterback's eyes, jumped, tipped the ball with one hand, and came back, tipped it to itself for an interception. Really, really exciting. And you see this a lot, two different times in the NFL. One, on teams with really good culture and camaraderie, and two, teams that are winning a lot. The entire sideline just freaked out for Edmonds both times he got these interceptions because he's been very close to some big time turnovers this year. His career is just, he just hasn't made splash plays. So it was his time. Everyone's fired up. And if you're a Steeler fan, you're just loving it because the whole team's gelling. We're gelling like felons, people. Yeah, 27-3. Defensive domination. Offensive just enough. One of the touchdowns came on a nice little play action. Steelers hardly run any play action because they're idiots, but it works. So that was nice to see.
Yep. Mapletron got his 10th touchdown.
Yeah. I don't even know what to talk about. There's so much.
Trying to think. Yeah. Deontay was really the star. He had like 11 or 12 catches for like 10 yards a pop. Juju injury, what's up with that? He stepped on a flag and twisted his ankle.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. Yeah, if you want to ever say that the refs are all pro Steelers, try and go watch the play where the ref throws the flag underneath Juju's foot and rolls his ankle. This is a conspiracy, people.
For sure.
It's not a conspiracy, but the refs would never throw he seriously though, they didn't even call a penalty on that play. He threw it right where Juju was running. It was so weird. It wasn't like it was on the ground for a long time. He threw it like right where he was running. So, pretty frustrating. They're calling it a toe injury. It's a classic Big Ben injury. I think he's learning from the best here. So, yeah, he'll be out there, I think.
I'm sure he's still healthy enough to fucking TikTok dance in the locker room after the game, so.
Dude, if you're going to try and tell a 24-year-old charmer not to hop on TikTok and harm the world, you're just barking up the wrong tree, Joey.
I didn't tell him not to. I just said I'm sure
rolled your eyes at him.
Seems like he was probably healthy enough by the end of the game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this more, but, like one of our teams got to rest a lot of its starters for like a big portion of the fourth quarter, leaning into a short week, and the other of our teams struggled through an overtime game, which I guess fortunately for you guys, the overtime didn't last that long.
One of our teams played the most physical runner and maybe the most physical receiving core in the NFL, and the other team played in Jacksonville.
Actually, we've both played the Tennessee Titans, and unfortunately to slightly different results.
Yeah,
barely
different results. You avoided overtime by the skin of your dick.
Yeah, so instead of building an 11-point lead and blowing it, built a 20-point lead.
The Steelers are lucky, and it's okay.
All right, I think we're about to roll right into it. So should we talk? Should we dive into it? Steelers win 27-3, remain undefeated, much to the dismay of Joey and even more to the dismay of the rest of his household.
I mean, I don't really care.
Yeah, you do.
That was gonna be a win the whole way. I mean, that was one you expect it to be a win, and if it's a loss, it's super sweet, and if it's a win, you're just like, oh yeah, that checks.
I know how your heart feels after every Steelers victory. You don't have to lie to me.
Hey, credit to the Steelers for their comeback victory against the Jaguars, down 3-0 in that football game. It's a gritty performance.
Should we talk about a quarterback that will probably spend his offseason watching tape of the Steelers and their comeback victories, since he seems to struggle with that? This is the third
I don't
awesome
think he'll be
segue
watching any tape of the Steelers offense, but
okay.
Sure,
That's how you
Ryan
don't get a
Tannehill.
second contract. That's how you don't get a second contract in the NFL.
All right, so before we even get into this, Daryl asked if it's panic mode in Baltimore. And
Yeah.
so there's nothing to panic about. This team is just not what we expected them to be. There's no panic. It's too late for panic. There's no between injuries and like the Ravens have lost like four totally different ways in their four. Like there's no like this is the Ravens' weakness and this is why they're losing. Like it's different every time, and it's just a mark of a team that's just like isn't putting it together, and I don't know if they will.
So another reinterpretation, Daryl, would be last week Joey said his hand was hovering over the panic button. That means that this collapse was so complete and so swift that Joey didn't even have time to
Yeah,
hit the
the
button.
panic button doesn't exist anymore. The panic button is dust.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
So,
this. Yeah, my expectations for this team are like maybe we make the playoffs. I don't know. Like I don't know how you can trust them. The receivers can't get open. When they do get open, they drop the ball. Uh, for some reason, we still waste like 2 drives in the beginning of every game figuring out that Mark Ingram isn't the same guy that he was last year. That's frustrating.
yeah, it's a shame.
Um, I don't. People want to say Lamar has regressed. I don't think I believe that. Um, I think it's more a product of what he's got going on around him, a little bit of the league catching up to Greg Roman. Um, the supporting cast is sucky. I don't know. And then the defense, we knew coming into this game is going to be tough sledding without Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams against Derrick Henry. The Ravens actually held him to 37 yards on 13 carries in the first half, which is commendable. And then the Ravens turned that into a 21-10 lead in the third quarter. And then it was just kind of a slow bleed. It was the same thing that's happened all year to the Ravens, even from the beginning of the game, settling for field goals in the red zone. That's something they didn't do last year. They converted a lot. There's some curious play calls. That's been typical. That's like a weekly occurrence now. But the Ravens were never ahead enough for the Titans to abandon the run. And I think both Corey Davis and A.J. Brown had no catches in the first half. There were some drops, lots of drops on their part in the first half. But man, the second half, I think a lot of this loss probably lays on Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters. The Ravens had to sell out for Derrick Henry and trust two all-pro / Pro Bowl caliber cornerbacks to cover these guys in man coverage. And Marcus Peters got like eaten alive on the play action stuff. It wasn't even like double moves or whatever. It might have been option routes. He just got caught on like leaning the wrong way like a zillion fucking times.
He looks more depressed than you do, honestly.
Against both guys.
He was shrugging his shoulders and looking around and doing that arm thing. He didn't even want to be there.
So that sucked. And then by the end of the game, it was the poor tackling, which we hadn't seen until this game this year. It was just really fucking shitty. Bright spots. J.K. Dobbins. Give him the ball a lot. I don't even care. Put him in the game. Give him the ball. Good things happen when he touches the ball. Malik Harrison had a really good game. Playing alongside Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison coming out of college. We all knew he was a good downhill run defender. He's holding and or blowing up blocks, not losing position on run blocks. And he was a big part of that first half against Derrick Henry. And I thought Derek Wolfe played a really good game too. He kind of became the scapegoat on the overtime run. So, long story short, the Ravens blew their 21-10 lead. They were down 24-21 with the ball to end the game, like a 2-minute drill. Drove down. I don't remember everything that played out. It drove down relatively easily. They had a nice little catch and run by Dez down the sideline.
Didn't get out of bounds. Notable.
What's that?
He didn't get out of bounds.
Yeah.
I was disappointed in that.
Yeah, I mean, they ended up kicking the field goal on 4th down anyways. But, yeah. The drive just stalled. Once again, guys just, couldn't get open. I don't know.
Yeah, the big play, I thought 2 things were notable about that drive. Well, 3. 1, they did it. They were losing, and they made a nice drive. So everyone that wants to say that Lamar can't come back or whatever, look, they were losing, and they drove down the field. So they can do it. Take it easy on Lamar. He's a delicate flower. 2, a couple of those plays were Lamar running up the middle. Classic last year stuff. Not being afraid to run even though the clock's winding down because he's fast. They can get chunk plays on these broken passing play runs. 3, Marquise Brown basically had a touchdown.
Yep.
He ran an out route. He was open, and there was a false start, which has been a very problematic element of the Ravens offense this year that was not last year, is pre-snap penalties. And this one came at really the wrong time because, look, Marquise Brown doesn't break a lot of tackles, but I think he had a real shot at the end zone on that swing pass. There was one guy to beat, and he was 4 yards deep in the end zone, basically.
Was that the false start on Mark Andrews? Or was that earlier in the game?
Didn't write down who it was on.
They had a 4th and 1 attempt where Andrews committed a false start, and that put him at 4th and 6, and they didn't convert.
Yep, I don't have that written down. I don't remember.
I don't remember when in the game that was. Either way, so they force overtime. Ravens get the ball in overtime, proceed to fucking go 3 and out, and the Titans get the ball, kind of methodically go down the field. They're already in field goal position when Derrick Henry ran left, kind of like an inside zone run to the left. Slipped a Derek Wolfe tackle and then cut it back, and everybody over pursued because that's what happens when you're tired of trying to tackle all these mutants on the Titans, and he got into the end zone. So yeah, stinks. Daryl is Daryl the Patriots fan? I think you're muted.
Yeah, Daryl's the Patriots fan.
Okay. So he says that variable learn from the best. It's just interesting, that how the mighty have fallen, that, for Patriots fans, that it's appointment viewing to come and poke at the Ravens when your team just lost to an interim football coach. But I digress. I guess last week was the Super Bowl for the Patriots, and everything else is just downhill from there. I'm sure it'll get chalked up to Belichick being a genius and losing games on purpose. So, anyways,
It's it's probably going to be tough for Patriots fans to get used to that role as a football franchise, as having like the best moment of your season be ruining someone else's. But we've all been there. Ravens fans have been there. Steelers fans have been there. Did you? I had to get up for a moment. Did
yeah,
we adequately cover AJ Brown
no, we didn't.
dehumanizing the entire Ravens core of good defenders in one single play?
No, we didn't.
Then let's talk about that for a moment.
Sure.
So the Ravens are winning, and it's 3rd and 10, and Ryan Tannehill dumps the ball off, and I say dump because this was a throw that was short of the sticks, right? He threw it about 7 yards to AJ Brown, which in a typical moment of Ravens fandom, you're thinking everything is going to plan. AJ Brown then proceeds to break tackles from first. What's his Clark?
Yep.
Everybody's favorite Chuck Clark. Everybody's favorite 6th round or no round or whatever it was pick. Strong safety, green dot wearing genius. Then he breaks tackle from Peters. Then he breaks a tackle from Humphrey.
Yep.
And then finally, he just pushes Queen into the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, Queen ran back to try to get in front of him, and
yeah,
couldn't.
Tough spot.
Couldn't dig in.
So,
tough spot, yeah.
If you want to give me the moment by moment emotional analysis of watching all of your good players get embarrassed at once, I would be open to listening to that.
There was no moment by moment at this. The Titans were already rolling at this point in the game, and it was like, oh well, like of course this is happening right now, and it happened again. Like it was either before this or after this. Like he was breaking tackles on everybody. Shit was ridiculous.
Yeah. I also actually noted in the first half that there was a point in which after a play that I think it was actually a drop, he was standing next to Marlon Humphrey, who was a big person. And he just made Marlon Humphrey look very small, which, to take it a little bit easy on these all-pro caliber players, it's like hard when someone is that much bigger than you to get in their way and stop them from catching a ball and then running with it. It was a tough task. And we talked about this, and you were very busy focused on how crappy the win was for the Steelers to acknowledge it. But the Tennessee Titans are extraordinarily physical, and we talked about it a little bit with the Steelers, that I think every single team that plays them is going to struggle to maintain in the second half. It's very important to outplay them in the first half and to kind of hold on, because these guys are so big and so strong. It's just almost impossible to not start to wear down. And the Ravens are a tough defense, and they had some tricky injuries that, maybe Calais Campbell could have chased down A.J. Brown and dragged him backwards. I don't know. I'm not going to say what could have happened, but it's tough. It's just tough to survive them. And I just wish I could have given you more advice leading up into the game on how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure having Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams in the middle would have not allowed the Ravens to allocate more resources to pass defense instead of stopping a human tractor. Literally a fucking human tractor.
Tractor Cito. Gotta say it every chance we get on the AFC North cast.
So are we done talking about this? Do you want to talk about John Harbaugh drama and then be fucking finished and move on?
I didn't watch it. I don't care. Nah, I don't care.
Okay.
I do want to talk about one more thing, and it's not going to hurt you. You're going to like this. How about the special teams play from Justice Hill? Did you notice Justice Hill?
Nope. He's been the gunner a lot. Was he the gunner?
Yeah. Well, guess what? On 2 straight kickoffs in the first half, Justice Hill absolutely blew up Batson. I don't know his first name, but he was playing pretty well in the first half. He's a very fast receiver guy that returns their kickoffs. On the first one, and this one was after the Titans, it was after the Ravens kicked their first field goal, so 7-3. Dude, he savagely hit Batson, which is really hard on a kickoff return because these guys are so shifty. He stood him up and then like lifted his leg up and he just dropped him down. And like Justice Hill is like a speed running back that
Yeah.
we were all excited about, but he hasn't gotten on the field because he's just not as good. But then on the next kickoff, when they kicked the second field goal, he did it again. Crazy good special teams day from Justice Hill. So that's fun. He's a guy that doesn't get any play on the offense, and he a little light shined on him.
Fun fact, I'm sure Daryl will deny this, but last week, Justice Hill got called on a bullshit fair catch interference penalty when he got held and turned around by the cheating Steelers punt team guy so that he couldn't even see the fair catch being called. And then when he tackled the returner because the lazy ref didn't blow the whistle when the catch was made, he got a flag thrown on him. Just wanted to point that out.
Well, if we're going off of his play this week,
I'm still steamed
Justice
about
Hill
it.
Was in the right. Yeah, you should.
Yeah, he was in the right last week too. He's great. He's been a great gunner.
Justice never prevails in Gillette Stadium, except the times when it does. Because up until last week, your whole storyline was that the Ravens own the Patriots. But now
that's not it. That's not my storyline. It was not that the Ravens own the Patriots. It's that the Patriots don't own the like they don't drub the Ravens like they do, say, I don't know, to pick a team out of thin air, the Steelers, historically. And so there's no like aura about it. Like the Ravens basically went into Gillette 2 straight AFC championship games and beat them if it wasn't for Lee Evans having grease on his fingers and Billy Cundiff missing a field goal wide left. So I'm not intimidated by the Patriots.
For all of our listeners that don't watch on video, Joey does have a random team lottery ball machine, and the Steelers somehow were the random choice on that. So incredible. The odds of that were so low, I don't even know, but it is true. So yeah, Ravens dropped to 6-4, dropped to third in the AFC North. Very unfortunate after Joey claimed that they were the second best team in the AFC North last week. But hey, not every prediction can come to pass, and maybe by the end of the year they will resume their seat as the second best team in the AFC North. And
they still are. Just because the Browns have a better record, the Ravens are better.
So would you then like to make the claim now that they're the first best team in the AFC North, because that's what we're about to talk about? Thanksgiving Day matchup.
If they were healthy, they'd be the best team in the AFC North.
All right. Well, what team are we going to get on Thanksgiving, Joey? Let's talk about it. Grudge match time.
Who knows?
Are you going to get?
Nobody knows. I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. Do you know what to expect from the Ravens on Thursday? I have no idea.
I think I do. Yeah, I think I do.
I mean, I'd like to hope they come out focused, but like who knows? They've got all kinds of COVID cases and guys not practicing. The facility was closed today. That's all really ideal for a short week game against the Pittsburgh Steelers after playing the Titans.
Nobody does anything on these short weeks anyway. They're all watching video and doing one walkthrough.
So
quit making excuses.
I don't know, man. I don't even know who's going to play. J.K. Dobbins might not play.
Well, Dobbins is definitely not playing. So that's a bummer. But it's balanced out, right? Because you got 3 running backs, and you keep trying to play all 3, and 2 of them are good. So this week, in my opinion, Mark Ingram is out. He's a bad one. You also lose one good one. You still have one good one. Gus Edwards is good.
So Gus Edwards is like the Steelers-Ravens rivalry running back. Like,
yeah,
bring out the hammer.
To me, I call that a wash. Like, in fact, it might even come out in the Ravens' favor, because those 2 drives you were talking about where Mark Ingram doesn't do anything, now they're not going to happen. And the other guy that's not going to play because of COVID is Brandon Williams.
Are you sure? Are you sure that Mark Ingram's not going to get the first 4 carries for the Ravens on Thursday?
I'm sure because he can't play because of the COVID thing.
Oh, sick. Uh,
So yeah,
Ravens might
these are
get
the
lucky.
people. These are the people that I'm saying with like, I don't want to say 100% because I have journalistic integrity and I know I'm trusted by tons and tons of people
Yeah,
to deliver news.
Baker
But like, I'm
Mayfield and
saying with the
Jedrick
nearest to
Wills.
100 that I can get, dude, tons of nines in the decimals here. Mark Ingram's not playing. J.K. Dobbins is not playing, and Brandon Williams is not playing due to the COVID being on the COVID list. Okay, so they're out, right? The Steelers haven't been running the ball well, so I don't think that Brandon Williams changes the Ravens' ability to make the Steelers run poorly. Now, if you also remove Calais Campbell, maybe, and he's kind of iffy. He didn't practice today, um, so I don't know. He's
Well,
got a
nobody
calf thing.
practiced today, so
I think they had a practice today, didn't they? I think it was just closed on Monday.
I read virtual everything. I don't know.
Okay.
Nothing
Well, anyway,
matters.
Calais Campbell has a calf injury and nothing matters. So I think that even with Calais Campbell out and all the rookies playing that aren't that good, like the Steelers' run game has been not great lately. So I think it's plausible that they will struggle anyway. Like I really do. The Ravens still scheme it pretty well, so I think that they can handle it. Or at least it's easy to imagine them handling it. If the Steelers get the running game open, then I mean that's really bad news. Like because that's the part of their offense that's not good. So if it's working, like I can't even describe your heart in that moment. It's not going to be a happy Thanksgiving for you. Um,
It's gonna be meets expectations. That's what it's gonna be.
right. Um,
This
so then
game.
the
Go ahead.
no, I was just say so for the Steelers offense. What I'm really wondering is like do NFL teams withhold creativity to save it for later? And if so, wouldn't this be the perfect time to just like not use their best stuff? Like the
I
Ravens are,
I think yes, they do withhold some things, whether
yeah.
it's a handful of plays, whatever it is. Yeah.
So here's the thing, like they already don't use the pre-snap motion very often. So if they're withholding, you might take most of that out, and that's been a big source of deep plays and good running plays, explosive running plays for the Steelers. And then if you take the spread away, which they did, they for large portions of the Jacksonville game, they weren't moving the ball that effectively, and they were not running any spread. They were just in a standard three wide receiver offense, and they just weren't going to it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do the same thing with the Ravens. Like, look, they know that if they bring 4 or 5 wide receivers, that it's a mismatch. But they don't need it. They don't need this like the Ravens do. So why give them more opportunities to put it on tape and scheme it up and stuff? So I'm like really nervous that the Steelers might score like freaking 9 points this whole game because they just aren't willing to do the things that they've needed to do to to get it going because their offense really hasn't been super consistent. It's been sporadic. I'm nervous. I'm actually nervous, Joey, about this.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens when you're the undefeated team and your division rival is losing every way imaginable to shitty football teams like the Patriots. It's just how it goes.
Well, the thing is, though, that also that's a nice accidental segue for me is that, in my opinion, like the Ravens played one of their most like Ravens centric positive game plans against the Steelers, and the Steelers didn't do a great job of dealing with it. And to me, none of the people that are injured or problematic for the Ravens impact their ability to do that. Like the Steelers didn't do a good job of ushering Lamar to the sideline. They gave him opportunities to create upfield running lanes on the outside. They always struggle with tight ends, like Robert Spillane, Vince Williams, maybe Avery Williamson, who they recently signed. These aren't guys that are going to contain Mark Andrews. and their corners are decent, but nobody gives a shit about the Ravens receivers anyways. So basically, it doesn't matter if your corners are good because it doesn't matter. So the Steelers defense has been like really dependent on turnovers to beat or even compete with the Ravens. And Lamar hasn't been very turnover prone except for the Steelers. So you can see how it would be difficult to project that he would just continuously keep throwing all these interceptions to the Steelers. I mean, how many times is he going to do it, Joey? I just picking at you. Hopefully for at least one more game, but he might not. And if those turnovers don't happen, it's easy to imagine a couple Ravens blowouts over the Steelers. So that's tough. The Steelers do get a couple of players back that they didn't have against the Ravens last time that will help. Mike Hilton is an excellent run defender and slot corner, so he will definitely help. And the big one, and I don't think you appreciated it at the time, but now that you've lost some key run defending big men, I think you can appreciate it. Tyson Alualu back in the fold for the Steelers. And just to emphasize, because I know you're not impressed by him, at the time that he got injured, he was Pro Football Focus's second highest graded defensive tackle in the NFL. And in case you're wondering, it was not a Ravens player that was first. It was Aaron Donald. So,
yeah.
So he's having an incredible season, and it continued last week when he deflected the pass that Minkah Fitzpatrick intercepted in the red zone there against Jacksonville. So he's a key player. And I would think that if the Ravens rush for 265 yards, with those two guys back, we got to at least drop that down to like 240, right?
We'll see. Maybe.
230? 180?
I think to win, they have to at least run for 200 yards.
The Ravens do?
Yeah. I think last week was kind of fluky for the defense. The Steelers obviously don't present the same type of run game problems that the Titans do. So basically everything that the Titans accomplished was off of Henry. All the play action stuff that they do, they probably do it better than like anyone in the league. Maybe outside of San Francisco when Shanahan has everything like fucking humming. So defensively, I'm not super worried. I just don't know. I just don't know offensively. I don't even know what the problem is. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know. Miles Boykin comes and goes. Hollywood Brown's
a target.
Been right. And in the beginning of the year, he was emerging, showing flashes at least. You haven't heard from him in 2 games. But Snead has kind of stepped up. Hollywood Brown basically doesn't do anything. It's hard to think of. And the biggest bright spot has been J.K. Dobbins, and he's not going to play. So, I don't know. I think it'll be a close game.
I think in my heart,
it's a rivalry game, but
yeah. I was leaning towards, and I'm going to pick the Steelers in all of my official picking things, but I was leaning towards a possible Ravens blowout. But the thing is the situation in the moment in time. like the Steelers have had multiple comebacks this year, including a 10-point deficit to the Ravens, while the Ravens are kind of culturally dealing with a different moment, an opposite moment, where they've had leads go the wrong way and deficits go the wrong way. And so I kind of feel like that even if the game starts to go wrong for the Steelers, they could keep it close. So I'm gonna believe. I'm gonna believe that the Steelers are gonna sweep the Ravens this year. It can happen. And
Yeah,
always still happen.
yeah. I mean, very much could happen. Um, it's in Pittsburgh, prime time, short week, COVID, offense stinks. Like lots of things working against the Ravens in this game, and the Steelers are getting healthier. They're rolling.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you just said that.
It's
I like
just
that a lot.
how it is. It's just what
I
it
know.
is.
I like how it is. I like what it is. I like
Yeah.
all that. Should we try to pull you out of this depression by talking about?
The
Should we
Bengals
talk? Yeah, let's talk about the Bengals.
and
That
the
way you can.
Giants.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the Bengals. So they're playing Sunday at 1 p.m. Um, the Bengals will either. Well, I'm pretty certain they're going to start Ryan Finley at quarterback. I don't know if I can express how badly he played in the last game, but at least he'll get a week's worth of starts in terms of first team snaps in practice. If he doesn't start, it'll be Brandon Allen, who he played 3 games for the Broncos last year.
Mm-hmm.
No obligation to know who either of these people are. They're bad. They're really, really, really quite bad. I don't really understand how they're going to be effective because the Giants defense has actually been playing pretty well lately. They've got a defensive line that we talked about a little bit because the Steelers played in week 1. Really, really stout front 3 defensive linemen: Dexter Lawrence, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Leonard Williamson going left to right. They both sack the quarterback occasionally, responsible for about 10 sacks this year between the 3 of them. And they just stuff the run. And the Bengals don't have Joe Mixon because he's on IR. So all they got to do is stuff Giovanni Bernard. And I think they can handle that. I really think they can handle that. Not to mention the fact that they have a corner in James Bradbury that actually intercepts the ball with relative frequency. So now you got Finley having to figure out where this guy is and not throw it at him. And they've got Jabril Peppers, who's a real wild card. So I don't know. I think I think they just stink. And it makes me sad because they were so fun to watch. And they probably would have scored 35 against this Giants team with Joe Burrow, and they're going to score 11. Like, I think the Giants are going to roll them. I think the Giants are taking over first place in the NFC East this week.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Giants defense has quietly kind of become the strength of their team, from a team that really had no recorded strengths. And I think Daniel Jones is good. I don't know. Is that weird to say? Golden Tate.
A little.
Golden Tate is Dookie now. I like Darius Slayton a lot. Evan Ingram. Like they've kind of been like getting on a little roll here and making some things happen. And the team that they're looking up in the standings towards, they just beat 2 weeks ago. So, yeah. I mean, coming off of a bye, like against Ryan Finley, like it's a recipe to keep the ball rolling for the Giants.
Yeah, the running, like the only thing that I don't think the Giants match up perfectly with the Bengals is that the running game isn't superb because Saquon Barkley's hurt. So they've got Wayne Gallman, who's just a name. But the thing is that they supplement their running game because he only carries the ball. I looked back at their most recent games. They play a ton of close games, which I'm going to get to, but he doesn't run the ball much, 10 to 15 carries a game. But Daniel Jones always has 3 to 6 carries, and he is a scrambler, and that's problematic for the Bengals. That's just going to be really problematic for them. So it's a really good supplement to the run game. Darius Slayton's the deep threat. Evan Ingram is the tight end. He's going to probably lead the team in targets, especially with the Bengals linebackers. It's a problem. And back to the close games. The Giants have been playing like all close games. They lost to the Steelers by 10 and the 49ers by 1,000,000. The rest of their games are like 1-point games. So they're used to it. So even if Finley and these ho-hum guys, they hang around, the Giants are used to this stuff, and the Bengals will fold. So I don't know what the spread is. I think the Giants are maybe favored by 4. It's tempting to say the Bengals can maybe keep it to like a 1-possession game just because the Giants always play close games. But I wouldn't count on the Bengals winning by any stretch.
Yeah, our Yahoo Pick'em has 5.5 for the Giants.
Oh wow, that's bold. I don't know that the Giants blow anybody out.
I don't know. I think the Bengals quarterback situation is so dire that it's very possible.
It is bad. I did just say they'd roll them like 2 minutes before they couldn't roll them. I've been like 1 step behind the NFL this year in understanding things. So the Giants haven't blown anyone out yet. I'm going to try and get ahead. They're going to do it this week. They're going to have their first blowout win this week over the Bengals. I don't like saying that. Jesse Bates will still have a sweet either interception or hit. But yeah, the Bengals are in big trouble, and we'll try and make sure we tell you about all the fun stuff next week so you don't have to watch it.
Daryl said it's possible 7 wins will take the NFC East. I'll do you one better, Daryl. I think 5 or 6 wins could take the NFC East this year.
Yeah. Hey, Daryl, I will buy you lunch at the cafeteria if an NFC East team wins 7 games this year.
And that's on the internet forever, folks. Pull the receipts. Mark that timestamp, Daryl.
You got it, buddy. I'm good for it.
Yes, and it is also time to drop all Bengals receivers you have in fantasy football.
Unless it's a keeper league, then you should definitely keep T. Higgins because you probably got him late.
And maybe Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, depending on when you drafted him.
That's right.
How about we talk about the Browns, Joey?
Let's talk about the second place, 7-3 Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Football Browns. They
also playing it.
Yep. Are heading down to the friendly confines of Duval, where the Steelers probably left. They definitely left their cleat marks all over the logo at midfield because fucking Juju was out dancing on the logo before the game like a real disrespectful asshole.
It was his birthday. People dance on their birthdays.
Birthdays are so special that literally everybody on the planet has one every year. And they're
sounds like a really fun household you grew up in.
Cleveland's going to Jacksonville. They are 6.5-point favorites in Duval against Jake Luton and the boys, James Robinson and the boys, Miles
Either
Jack
way.
and the boys. I don't know. Jack is probably like the captain of that football team.
He's good, man.
He is very good. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the Jags can make it frisky. But Cleveland probably just like eventually grinds them into submission with the run game. It seems like that's their recipe this year.
I'm going so bold on this, and normally I would have so much confidence because normally I'm good at this. And for the record, I actually am still good at picking winners because I'm currently in first place of the AFC North cast pick'em league. Um, I think the Jags are a bad matchup for the Browns. They have great middle linebackers, and that means that the Browns are going to have to do an exemplary job linemen to get them to the second level, which is tricky. It's not an easy thing to do. Um, and I don't think they'll be perfect at it, but I think that the Browns are like super dependent right now on that working. And they've played 3 straight terrible weather games. This isn't going to be that. This isn't going to be a slog where there's 90-mile-an-hour wind and rain in your eyes. Like, you're going to be Florida before hurricane season, after hurricane season, not in hurricane season. Maybe in hurricane season, but there's no hurricane. Get over it. Don't hit me with the science. The Jacksonville secondary has had injuries and isn't very good, but Baker doesn't have the same weapons or the consistent ability to hit them. I mean, you and I both love Hollywood Higgins, who has totally reclaimed the Hollywood nickname.
Agreed.
But he's not like going to get 10 catches for 180 yards here, you know, and Jarvis Landry's hurt. So he's going to be like a key third down guy. And I forgot to talk about the cool Jarvis Landry check-in in the Browns game last week. He did something cool. Whatever, he does something cool every week. We'll talk about it next time. So I'm like nervous about Cleveland's ability to run it up on Jacksonville and keep them out of it. And if you don't keep them out of it, Jacksonville's running game is decent. Like they hung around with the Steelers until that somewhat unlucky interception, and then the Steelers ended up scoring a touchdown off that. I don't know that the Browns can do that. Let me tell you why. The Browns defense is 2 players. Myles Garrett, who is not playing, COVID, still out. He's already been ruled out this week. And Denzel Ward, also ruled out this week with like a calf strain or some nonsense. So that means that the Browns defense is 11 bodies. And the Jags have players like Luton. That first drive, he was making reads. If the Browns don't intimidate him, he won't know. Like, just like he didn't know against the Steelers until they started delivering. Mm-hmm. Like, he'll just deliver it. DJ Chark, Conley, or what's his name? Keelan Cole. Dude, Keelan Cole had such a clever little onside kick against the Steelers. I almost wished it worked. A wide receiver kicking the onside kick and trying to go get it? I just thought that was fun. Didn't work, though. And then hopefully Laviska Shenault will be back in the fold. He didn't play against the Steelers, but he's a fun little rookie. Yeah. And if all 3 of those guys are in and Denzel Ward's not playing, and now we're talking about Cleveland's secondary trying to like keep up with all those guys, plus stop James Robinson, who's like, he's totally adequate. Like, he will run on them. I'm calling upset. Definitely they cover, but I'm calling upset.
Nothing would delight me more. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe this is a little bit of like post matchup respect for the Jags on your part.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
But we'll see. They are a bad team led by a guy named Jake Luton, who are like 1-9 this year. So
I'm just saying, like, that one scoring drive was really impressive.
6.5 is a lot of points,
dude. And I'm telling you, if they don't successfully rush the passer,
yeah,
I think the Luton kid will be okay. Like, he clearly he can see the field unless he's being savagely crushed by the entire front 7 of like the best rushing, you know, like that's just not what the Browns are. I know Olivier Vernon had a nice game, but I don't think it's going to happen again 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and the Jags do have enough guys in contrast to the Eagles. The Jags have enough guys to stress the Cleveland secondary.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see him keeping it close. Yeah, I think the Jags cover. I do think eventually the talent will prevail, and the Browns will be able to kind of salt it away. But I think
Oh,
I
I
think the
thought you meant
Jags will keep it close.
I thought you meant Joe Schobert's talent would prevail.
Yeah, yeah.
Reigning AFC
And
North
Joe
Player of the
Schobert
Year.
revenge game. Don't underestimate that.
Dude, I didn't even think about that. It's the Joe Schobert revenge game. Oh my god. I'm definitely taking the upset here.
There you go.
Definitely.
You heard it here first. Bet your mortgage on Joe
From
Schobert.
the leader, and I can't remember who won this week because it wasn't me. It was War Pigs or something like that.
Okay, Jared. Yeah, he's sneaking up in the pick'em there, slowly. So, last week, yeah, last week Jared won 8 correct, which is kind of sorry. Out of like 14 games, nobody did super well this week in the pick'em. Chad and Tater had 7. A bunch of people had 6. I had 5.
That's tough.
Mostly,
Everything's really
mostly
tough.
because the fucking Pats got waxed in Houston, so that was a problem. But anyways, so yeah, Chad is tied with Bones with 101 correct picks at a 63% clip, and then tied for what would be third with 98 correct is me and Jared. So
It's very exciting.
coming
You
down
should
the home
all join
stretch.
because every week we try to remember to say who won so you could be on the internet forever as a winner. We're not talking
Especially,
about participation trophies. We're not just going to announce the names of our listeners, except for Baker Mayfield and other players that don't actually listen, but maybe they do. This is a real thing.
especially on the weeks that Chad wins it, he makes sure to know that he won it.
That's correct. You have to advocate for yourself in this world, Joey. Know what he's going to do it for you.
And on that life lesson, we will let you guys go. Have a good week. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the best rivalry in the NFL. And then enjoy the Joe Schobert revenge game.
Peace from Rod Woodson.
Super Bowl champion Rod Woodson.